Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Esri Emergency Management webinar series. Today, we're talking about supporting your emergency management operations using location intelligence. My name is Ryan Langcloss, and I'm the Director of Public Safety Industries here at Esri. And I've got a great group of folks here today to really talk about what this means to manage operations, especially from our solutions side. We're talking to Nikki Golding today, who's our Public Safety Solutions Lead, really launching what this new operations solution set really means, how it works, and to give you some details on that. And also with Jeff Barani today, who's our Public Safety Assistance Program Operations Manager. Jeff really manages the day-to-day operations for our disaster response team, which plays a critical role in defining some of the requirements and lessons learned that really informed how we develop solutions to meet the needs for operations and emergency management. So today we're going to cover a couple things. Number one, give you a bit of history of how we've gotten to today, the lessons that we've learned over this period of time. We'll talk about what the emergency management operations solution set looks like. We'll give you an introduction to that, point you in the right directions to get started in terms of next steps. So where do you download the solutions? Some tangible things that you can do moving forward after today to hopefully get prepared as we've got hurricane season bearing down for those in the US on the Gulf Coast, and just over 700 hours, as Jeff tells me yesterday. So we have the clock ticking internally. I'm sure that many of you do as well as you look to prepare and get ready for the next event internally. We will also do a Q&A period, but please know that everybody has been muted today on the line. So if you have questions, just be sure to use the chat window inside of GoToWebinar. Those questions will be fielded by the team here that I just introduced throughout the webinar. We'll reply to you in chat mode, and some of those things we will bring back out and respond kind of publicly for those things that are broad-based questions that may help others. And if we don't happen to get to your question today, note that we will follow up an email after today's webinar, so we'll be sure to take time to answer each and every question, even if we don't get to it in chat or through the question and answer period at the end. Now, there will be 2 interactive poll questions today, and these are your chance to kind of give us a sense of where you are in the process. So this will help us tailor the material as we proceed through the webinar today. So just when those poll questions get launched, you'll see a screen pop up on your GoToWebinar interface. Just use that to answer the questions. That'll give us some intelligence. We'll look at the results together, and then after that, we'll move on to the next section. And after today, so we will record this. It'll be posted online. So if you've not explored our wealth of materials on the webinar series, you can always go to esri.com, go to the public safety industry page, and you can actually see the webinar series where you both signed up for this webinar, but also explore the wealth of other recordings and resources that are available across public safety, not just emergency management. And then finally, you'll get an email from us with links to follow up. So we will provide a number of resource links for you to follow up after today, where to find the solutions, specific websites and stuff like that. So you will get an email in the next couple of days with some topics to follow up. So with that, I wanted to take a moment and, I mentioned the very first thing we wanted to provide you is a bit of context of how we've gotten to today, where we're kind of launching this new operations offering that we're calling, right? This collection of solutions that help you manage emergency management operations. And internally for Esri, we have had this program that we call our disaster response program for about 20 years. Many of you on the phone have likely interfaced with that program in one way or another. So I just wanted to kind of introduce for some of you that may be new to the program to understand what we provide here at Esri out to the community of our users, you on the phone when your capacity is exceeded during a disaster. And essentially that program provides you a resource 24 hours a day, 7 days a week around the world to request assistance from Esri when something bad happens. And so what can you typically request? Well, that is ArcGIS software. So should you lose software as a result of a disaster, or you need to scale up software for volunteers that are coming into an operations center, for example, we can help you in that regard. We also provide technical support. So, and that means premium technical support. So your mission critical applications that are running on top of ArcGIS during a disaster can't fail. And so we recognize that. So know that we have an express line, so to speak, directly into our technical support team. We triage those things internally as a team. When you send us an email or request, that immediately gets triaged and pushed out, and then we can escalate that into premium support any time of day or night. So know that we're there to make sure that your applications function and work as expected during a disaster. Then the third is really access to data. So we do provide a lot of connection points inside of the community to both data sets within the public safety community, as well as data that Esri makes available through our Living Atlas and the like. And so we do a lot of work to both help process and understand the capabilities of using that data and getting in sometimes into formats that are consumable for GIS applications. And then finally, which is really where we're talking about today, is helping you implement workflows, solutions to common workflows in emergency management. And we'll talk more about that as we go through today, but that's really the bulk of our requests are, I need help to do something like a damage assessment after an incident. And so we do quite a bit of consulting and help in just making sure that people understand how to use the capabilities that they currently have at their disposal. So if you ever need us, know that you can go to esri.com/disaster, and you'll see a button right at the very top that says request assistance. So if there's an incident that is currently underway in your jurisdiction, send a note. We will follow up within a matter of hours. You'll have access to both the software, the technical support access, and all those things I just described. And then the other good thing to maybe bookmark inside of your Outlook or email client is the email alias disaster_help@esri.com. That'll get you direct access into that team and sets off a number of bells and whistles that get our team activated in responding to your request when it's needed. Now, looking back over the history, I said that this program has been around for 20 years. We really look back and see the first thing that our team responded to here at Esri was 1994, which was the Northridge earthquake. And it was really about helping them get better situational awareness of the magnitude of that event and conducting some damage assessment. We look at this list here, and I put it up just to give you a sense of it, not to really have you read every single bullet point on here, but know that we take these incidents extremely seriously, and we look at the importance of the events internally to Esri as well as externally. So selfishly, we use these to learn from you, right? So we learn what your main pain points are, what your challenges are for deploying our technology and solutions that feed back into both our product development team as well as Nikki's team on the solution side that we're going to talk about today. And so we've looked back over the years, we started to kind of really mine that information to find how we can improve ArcGIS as a platform and as a technology, but also just to understand some of the business requirements and challenges that organizations face and how we can help kind of bridge the gap as much as possible across the entities that we've responded to. Now, kind of flash forward here a bit to last year, 2017 for us, out of that 20-year history, 2017 was the busiest year on record for our program. So we had the most requests for assistance ever to Esri. And for those of you that live in the US and are focused around the Gulf, you know that there was this trio of hurricanes that came through. And the graphic you see now is starting with Hurricane Harvey, starting in the Gulf of Mexico, making landfall a couple of times on the southeast coast of Texas. And the little pins that are dropping up are actually the requests for assistance that came in and where we were actively supporting organizations. And right after Harvey, the next hurricane started forming way out, and that was Hurricane Irma. And here comes Hurricane Irma now taking aim, first on the west coast, or sorry, the east coast of Florida, then to the west coast, and then kind of finally moving right up the outer. And so those pins, you notice, kind of turn on and became active. And what was beautiful about that is that people were kind of paying attention, right? Harvey put everybody on alert. Irma was right behind it, and then unfortunately Maria as well, hitting Puerto Rico, the Dominican, and the like. But those gave us opportunities to help a number of customers. They were in advance kind of preparing and asking for support and help after what Harvey had just done to Texas and the Southeast. And so 2017 for us was a unique year. And when we took a step back and we looked at all the requests we had from 2017 and really those 20 years of history, I mentioned what we do in 4 things, right? The data, the access to workflows, but we can simplify that into kind of 3 things that we want you to be doing in advance, right? So we hope that you never have to call the Esri Disaster Response Program. We want to give you as much information, as much knowledge, and as much technology in your hands to answer the challenges that you're going to face when something does happen. And it really breaks down to 3 different areas. One is that you're going to start collecting and connecting with data inside your organization. So many of you have business systems, right? Crisis information management systems like a web EOC that manage that knowledge, right? That manage that incident information that you want to connect to and exploit with location intelligence, right? You want to start mapping that data. You want to start visualizing it, analyzing it to make better decisions. Then the second thing that we want you to think about is how you configure mission critical solutions. So it's not just one application that meets everybody's needs. It really is a focused application that helps a decision maker get to the information as quickly as possible and move on. And then finally, which is kind of the switchboard component that I talked about, sharing and collaborating with your colleagues. So within your region, within your state, and then intrastate and internationally, there's a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of information that we want to help you understand better how to share and collaborate so that you have information and that your colleagues have information about your specific jurisdiction when they need to respond in through mutual aid or other. And so those three high levels, I want to come back to the one in the middle because that's really what we're talking about today is how do you configure mission critical solutions that meet common requirements? And again, kind of looking back and the lessons that we've learned, what we've heard from you as our users, and what Nikki and her team have gone in and actually sat down and gathered requirements from specific users, we've come up with a series of solutions that we think meet the need for the most common challenges in emergency management operations. So the first one is around situational awareness, right? The most common thing we get asked for is helping integrate those business systems like WebEOC and real-time data like the National Weather Service or the Hurricane Center. And this screenshot here exemplifies that. The shelter data you see on the map is coming from a WebEOC board managed by the state of Florida. You see the Hurricane Irma track and actually Hurricane Maria as well out to the far east side of the screenshot there. This is live data coming from the National Hurricane Center with storm surge and the like. So we get a lot of requests for how do we integrate real-time data in our business systems to provide situation awareness. The second is help me understand impact. And so the screenshot we have here is helping people understand who and what might have been impacted by an incident. And this is Hurricane Harvey, and you'll notice this is total precipitation over the 7-day period and the over 50 inches of rain. So just over 51.22 inches roughly in some of the heaviest areas around Southeast Texas are shown in purple. And within that area, we can do some geo-enrichment, right? We can start to really quickly understand how many people, 186,000, how many housing units, 74,000, and how many businesses, just under 5,000, might be impacted in that specific area. Now, this seems simple for us in GIS, but having an application that quickly allows a decision maker to touch on the map and to get intelligence about how many resources they need to think about deploying and pre-positioning in some cases, depending on the data we're using, is vitally important. So we get a lot of requests for that. The third thing we get requests for is public information. The map you see on the screen here is from the state of Florida, and this was their Know Your Zone application. So it was type in your address for the state of Florida, see if you were in evacuation zone, so when information is going out, the public knows when to evacuate and what routes to take from that. Now imagine with Hurricane Irma just after Hurricane Harvey and knowing that that cone of uncertainty was shifting from east to west, how many people actually started to access that site. And that was about 40 million people over a 3-day period and a peak of about 28 million hits in one day. So a lot of the requests we get are to, number one, get the application stand up, but also make it scalable so that it can withstand massive views like 40 million hits over a 3-day period. So public information is a critical component. And then damage assessment. So how do you work with mobile devices in both a connected and disconnected environment to do an initial damage assessment right after an event that can help expedite the joint preliminary damage assessment and the state verification in between that. And that's really where we talk about damage assessment. This is the city of Key West, Florida. And what's beautiful about the screenshot is the date at the bottom, September 10th, 2017. This is directly the afternoon after Hurricane Irma passed over Key West. They were in the field working without connectivity, without power, without communications, on smartphones and tablets, connecting their information in the field back to the decision makers in the EOC and synchronizing that when they started to get connectivity back in the operations center. So we get a lot of requests for how do we do that. I think Key West is a great example of a city that has really taken that solution idea and some of the best practices to heart and was ready to respond for damage assessment. And then finally, it's about conducting briefings. So you've got all this great information, right? You know the potential impact. You've got damage assessment points coming in. How do you brief elected officials? How do you brief the public? How do you brief your decision makers with this information effectively? And so the screenshot here is about conducting dynamic incident briefs. This is, again, Hurricane Harvey. This is at the Texas Department of Emergency Management. This is their briefing with the governor on the right and the president on the left, looking at real-time data coming in about traffic conditions, about impact and the like for Hurricane Harvey. And so we get a lot of requests about help me understand how to aggregate all this information into an incident brief that allows me to then get the dynamic nature so that it's not a static PDF and it's not a static PowerPoint. It is real-time information that helps decision makers really understand the potential. So I want to pause for a moment. So those several things I just mentioned, right? Situational awareness, damage assessment, and the like, are common challenges that we've heard. And I'd like to hear from you. So I want to open a poll question really quick, and I want to say, out of that list, right, what's your biggest challenge? So let us know. You can select all that apply on the screen, but is your biggest challenge getting real-time information for situational awareness, or estimating impact, or doing damage assessment and the like? So if you would just take a moment, interact with the poll, select all that apply here, and that will kind of help us understand maybe where we focus some of the conversation in the next phase as we really start to talk in more detail about the solutions. All right, so let's close the poll and we'll take a look at our results here. All right, so the number one thing, situational awareness, 65% of you think that's one of your biggest challenges. So we're gonna show you today how you can start to download and employ situational awareness with the new solutions that Nikki will show in a minute. Estimating impact, that is critically number two, not surprising, right? So how do I take the data from that situational awareness and I really start to drive analysis? We'll talk about the ability to start looking at impact and doing some new situational awareness tools that allow you to get immediate kind of a rough thumb estimate of what the impact might be. And damage assessment, not surprising either. Those are the top three things that we get asked to do on a pretty common basis. So that really lines up, I think, with what we've seen over that 20-year history. So thanks for taking the time to answer that. That really helps us make sure we're on point here in the next section. All right, so let's continue on here for just a minute into our poll question. So what we're going to talk about now is how to help you answer those challenges, right? So we're going to give you an outline of this, what we call this emergency management operations offering. It's going to talk about how you can understand potential impact, analyzing who and what. You'll gain situational awareness. There's a solution template to help you in many ways in that area. We'll talk about conducting the initial damage assessment and how you can connect both your teams in the field on mobile devices back to dashboards that allow situational awareness and understanding of that damage in real time back in the operations center. We will cover a bit about briefing and the command staff. So for those of you that are looking at using dynamic briefings, we'll talk about an incident brief based on story maps that we've started to configure with Nikki and her team. And then finally, just managing the flow of public information. I noticed that was on the list as well. I think that will continue to spike as people realize the capabilities and as the citizens out there are clamoring for information in a geographic context. We're going to talk about that as well on the solution offering. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Nikki. What we're going to talk about is all of those components together. We'll talk about where they exist today. We'll show you a quick demonstration of these different applications in context of what we just described. And then we'll come back to talk about next steps and moving forward. So Nikki, the stage is all yours. Thanks.
Thank you, Ryan. So as Ryan mentioned, our team within Esri is charged with ensuring that we're well connected with customers and building solutions that orient around the 4 phases of emergency management. And that is not just building tools for response. It is looking at and evaluating the full life cycle from everything from mitigation, recovery, and preparedness. And most recently, we've pivoted our work to focus around disaster resilience, so helping communities evaluate risk of their assets to an event, and then understanding the impact of those assets as the event unfolds to really begin to understand where mitigation and planning activities could be oriented around. Today, this is the composition of our entire suite of emergency management solutions. What you're looking at with little red circles next to those solutions are solutions that we've recently updated or newly released solutions. This is important because as we iterate with customers and continue to get requirements on the solutions that we're shipping, we're constantly accepting feedback. So good, bad, or indifferent, this is great, this is missing, we want to hear from you. We very much feel like this is a participatory sport in that you get out of it what you put into it. So we want your feedback. The baseline of our solutions was driven by you and your colleagues. So we want to hear about what works well and what doesn't. But in essence, this is what you can get to today from our solution site, which Jeff will show you later. Having said that, I'd like to dig in a little bit and show you a number of solutions that we incorporated as part of our offering. The first of which is our emergency management map solution. I like to think of this solution as really the foundation to the house. This helps you get everything in order, get your data together, organized in a way that makes sense for the map products and applications that you need to feed in many aspects of the work that you're doing, whether it's blue skies or you're working towards responding to a situation. So this is an ArcGIS Pro solution. As part of the solution, we include a baseline set of layers, which also includes a set of industry standard symbols that we built in partnership with the National Alliance for Public Safety GIS. So this allows us to create really nice looking maps, but it also allows us to orient ourselves and the constituents and stakeholders that we're working with around a standard set of cartographic products and symbols. So just like we want to understand what are the map products we need to create, we also need to understand how we're presenting that information out through the various products, and that the symbol set is what helps us do that. Now, starting out with just a really quick tour of what we're doing, we have a couple of tasks that can be utilized to give you, a workflow. For those of you that are unfamiliar with tasks in ArcGIS Pro, it's a set of workflows that are encapsulated to drive you through a sequence of steps so that you're not working with, a blank ArcGIS Pro project. We've set up 3 steps to help you get oriented with this particular solution. The other thing I'd like to draw your attention to is a set of standard maps that we create, or that we ship as part of our project. The maps here are example maps oriented around the standard products that we've heard from you that are baseline maps that need to be created. So we have a situation map, which is what you're looking at now, which includes an incident boundary, critical facilities information about our assets in the field, as well as shelters. We have a transportation map that allows us to understand the ecosystem of ingress and egress routes, evacuation routes, road closures, and the like. So these standard set of maps also include a standard set of layouts that can be utilized in the work that you're doing. And these layouts allow us to, I'm just going to pin this so it's easier to find. So these layouts allow us to create those standard products. So if I open up standard set of printed products, if I open up, let's say, this population map, it includes standard set of map surrounds, a logo, a title, all of which can be configured to meet the needs of your end product. Our goal here is to provide you a frame to start with so that as you begin the work, you begin populating the solution with your own authoritative information. We have standard layouts that work for you. In addition to the standard, letter landscape format that you're looking at here, we also have a series of larger format templates that can be used. So in the event you need to plot something, to put it on the wall, we have templates that support that as well. So having that quick tour there of the map products, the layouts, and the symbology allows us to then pivot back to the task that I was talking about initially that step you through the sequence. So when you download the solution, you'll see that there's some sample information and data that's included as part of the solution. This is really just giving you an opportunity to orient yourself to the products and to take a quick tour around what we've provided. So in order to enable you to begin to use this for yourself, the first step is deleting the sample data. So this task will walk you through deleting our sample information. The next step is then loading your information into our maps. This takes and walks you through step by step how to populate our standard set of layers that we've provided as part of our solution. I'd like to pause for a second and indicate that we've provided a sample information model. You are not required to use that sample information model, but it is a great foundation to start with in the event that you don't have your own way of describing and orienting the information that you need as part of your workflow. The other thing that we provide as the first sequence of steps is using demographic information. This allows you to pull in information from our Living Atlas, and this allows you to begin to size up the potential impact to the community that the incident or event is happening around. The second step in this process is sharing the information with your organization. So as I mentioned, this is the foundation to many of the solutions, which I'll subsequently show. But when you load the information into your layers and maps, the next step is sharing that information out, because these maps are the baseline for all the other applications that I'm about to show. So we walk you through how to share that information with your organization, how to remap the information that you've published into either portal or online back to this project. So as the incident unfolds, you're orienting everybody from desktop to web to briefing and situational awareness applications. They're all singing from the same common data set on the back end. And then the last thing that we provide as part of this is creating a couple of different types of map products. So we support workflows to create field reference maps, as well as incident map books. So rather than going through those two sequences live, I've gone ahead and created the end product that task would allow you to create. So as much as we orient around, the interactive maps, there still is a need to create map books and the like. So that task allows us to create an incident map. As part of that workflow, we step through which incident maps we'd like to create as part of this map book. So in this case, I've selected my population map. I have that same transportation map, which I was talking through a second ago. Here's our operations map, public assistance map, and you get the idea. I have a standard set of products that I've now created and I want to present or share with somebody through PDF. That task supports that. The other task that I mentioned was creating a map book to support, in this case, the example that we've used is damage assessment maps created around a grid system. In this case, our grid is US National Grid. So it's gone through and created a page for every single grid that's in our map. So we can go through and understand the areas that need to be assessed and where those areas are situated. So that's a really quick overview of our emergency management map solution, which, as I mentioned, is the baseline for everything else I'm about to show. So once you've gone through the process of creating those maps, loading your data, and publishing and sharing those layers and map products, you can now bring them to life in other information products like this, which is the situational awareness viewer. The situational awareness viewer allows us to take a look at an incident boundary and begin to understand potential impact to the community. So I'll start with selecting this feature. And you'll notice when I do that, I have it's just a simple polygon that's on the map. I've got these little 3 dots on the right-hand side of my pop-up. When I click those, I can choose to set this as my location that I want to orient around. So once I've done that, instead of just taking that boundary by default, I'm going to add some additional area to assess, assuming that in this example, it's a flood polygon. We're assuming those waters are going to continue to rise. So now that I'm looking at and have defined the incident boundary inclusive of that additional distance, which is 1 mile, I can now look at these tabs across the bottom of my application. By default, they're configured to look at a couple of things. We're looking at demographics in this area. So we can begin to understand potential impact to the population in the area, which is 291,000 people. We have, particular segments of demographics that we want to have a heightened awareness around. So seniors age 65 and older, we have 40,000. Children under the age of 14, 45,000. And then we have 6,500 households without vehicles. So should those folks need to evacuate, they don't have a means to do so with their own car. So this begins to help us understand the composition of the community and potentially segments of the demographic that would need assistance. The second tab that we're looking at is looking at assistance requests. So these are folks that have proactively registered themselves as needing assistance should something happen in their community. So we can see that we have 10 people or 10 requests that have been submitted. But what we also can see is that it's not just about getting them out of their homes. They have a unique set of circumstances that we need to be mindful of so that as we remove them from the area, we're taking their necessary essentials with them. So some people have special medications that are required, others have service animals. So this allows us to understand, the people that need additional help in the wake that something happens. The other thing we can look at is shelter information. So within our incident boundary, we have 3 shelters. We can see their total capacity as well as the total number of beds that are currently available. And as Ryan mentioned earlier, looking and utilizing information coming out of our incident management system. In this case, we're pulling that shelter information directly from WebEOC. So we're leveraging that information as it's rolling in and it's remaining current as it's being utilized in that incident management system, but it's feeding our operations as we're rolling through this information. The other thing we can look at is hospitals or other facilities of importance within this area. So you can see we have 9 hospitals in this area, total number of beds of 3,300. Schools that are affected, we can see we have 5 schools, 3,600 students in that particular area. So should something happen during the week, during school hours, we begin to understand the children in the number of children in that area that could potentially need our help. We can also look at the infrastructure and the status of that infrastructure. So understanding the composition of bridges as well as the status of the roads in our community. So this really is looking at big picture, how big is the bread box, how many people are in the community, that really begins to help us turn towards operationalizing on what's happening here. The other thing that this application allows us to do is create other products. I can create reports, which allows me to create situation report. It allows me to get a little bit deeper into the information. So we have demographics information, number of assistance requests. You can see not only we get that high level information that's provided as part of the application, but we can also drill down into the detailed data for each of those individual affected entities or facilities within our impact area. The other thing that I can do is create a snapshot. This snapshot capability, this little camera icon down here, allows me to take a snapshot of the incident at a moment in time. This is helpful because it allows us, as we're doing after action and we're rolling through the event, to really understand the incident as things have unfolded. So I create a snapshot, it creates that incident boundary as well as the buffer that I specified. You can see the road closure, bridges affected, schools, etc. But you'll also note that there's a timestamp here. So this was created just a few minutes ago. It allows me to really understand, on May 3rd at this particular time, this is what the incident looks like. The other thing that I also want to draw your attention to is the snapshot is fully interactive, have all that feature information that comes along for the ride as part of that snapshot creation process. So we're able to fully leverage this information. It's disconnected from our operational information. So as things begin to unfold, we're continuing to work on that operational data, but this stays static. So literally at a moment in time, I know what happened. Moving on to the next application that's part of our solutions is operations response. So now that I know what's going on or have a sense for what's going on, I'm going to turn to a configuration called operations response, which allows us to begin to staff what's happening on the ground. So you can see that I have a number of mission ready packages. Those are trained assets on the ground ready to be deployed in the event that something happens. You can also see I have emergency facilities, so I can do things like add additional locations for food distribution center in the event that we need to. And this is allowing me to fully not only understand what's going on, but let's say I have additional assets or an additional need for assets, fire and hazardous materials in this location. I simply pick that from my editor tool, click on the map to provide where I'd like to put those mission ready packages and populate the information required in order to do that. So now you'll see that even though I didn't populate any information, the point is there and we're operationalizing on what's happening. So this allows us to staff the need on the ground. What you'll also notice, as Ryan mentioned, that we're creating mission-focused applications. It's a targeted or tailored application for ops so that they are not looking at a bunch of different layers that aren't germane to the decisions that they need to make. So it's highly focused and oriented around those decision points for operation in an event. The next aspect of the solution is how are we communicating status around key points of information or key data points as the event unfolds. And so you'll notice using a configuration of operations dashboard, we have an incident status dashboard that is intended to run passively within the EOC. So it's up on the wall. As information is changing and evolving, the metrics are immediately reflected. So with a quick glance up onto the screen, any decision maker or anybody interested could take a quick look up and see, these key points that we've bubbled up as part of our configuration. So you'll see that we have 3 incidents that have been reported in the last few days, but none in the last 24 hours. You can also see that we have 4 weather watches and warnings, so we're able to pull in live information tied to the weather. You can see that we've had 10 mission ready packages, 9 closed roads, 6 points of distribution, and also the status of our shelters also being fed, just as you would expect by WebEOC. The other thing that I want to point out while we're looking at this is the same data moving throughout the system. So that fire station or fire mission ready package, fire and hazardous materials mission ready package that I just created is immediately reflected in our dashboard. So because we're using the same data feeding all of our applications, we're all seeing that same common picture that I've referred to. The other thing that I'd like to point out is that with the latest release of our operations dashboard, we have this concept of when things were last updated. So we have not only most current information, but we know when that information was last pushed to our operations dashboard. So should we need to go back and really begin to understand how things have evolved, we have the capability to do that, but we also have the capability to understand how current this is. The next piece of the operations solutions is looking at damage assessment. So with the latest release of our solution, as I mentioned, things are constantly evolving throughout our solution set. We released just a few weeks ago a Survey 123 configuration working to support initial damage assessment. This allows folks to go out into the field, connected or disconnected, and begin to make assessments of properties in the area. So we have a configuration for residential structures, commercial structures, and public facilities, but they look very similar. And using Survey 123 as you're training folks to come online to help with your damage assessments, they simply need to learn one type of form and they're off and running. And in this case, I can provide the incident number, the incident name, the inspection date and time, which is pulled directly, from my device. In this case, I'm showing it to you on my laptop, but obviously is an application intended to work from the field. I've got site information. If I happen to have parcel information or valuation information, I can utilize that. And I can begin to select information about what's going on in the particular area. I can see that, or I can indicate based on my assessment that the facility or location that I'm looking at has a minor level of damage. I can indicate the primary cause of damage. So this is tied to, the event that you're responding to. I'd mentioned that we were working on floods, so I'll pick that. I can provide, if I happen to have valuation information, I could leverage that if I saw fit to provide an estimated loss to the structure, loss of contents, what's the overall impact to the jurisdiction, and you get the idea. But the other thing that I'd like to point out here is that we have the capability to simply take a quick photo using Survey 123 and capture not only the essence of what we're seeing, but sharing that photo with others that will then use the comprehensive picture of our damage assessments to ultimately understand what the next steps are for our community. In doing that and bubbling up that information, if you will, using Operations Dashboard, so this is a configuration designed to bubble up those damage assessments for residential structures, commercial structures, and also public facilities to support, not only understanding where we have work to do in the community for assessments, but as we're looking to understand if we could get funds from FEMA to support our community, we're understanding, what the extent is financially, damage of extent financially for our community. And the last thing I'd like to show is how we're empowering public information officers to communicate proactively with not only the people that they're briefing, but the constituents and the communities as well. So this is a configuration of Web Application Builder that allows us to take key points of information that would be of interest to the community, so things like live weather, demographics, damage extent, and the like, and present that back out to the community. And the way that we've designed this particular application is so that it's easily embeddable within a government website. So we're circumventing, the number of calls and concern that's often illustrated by the community in the wake of an event by presenting information that the public can easily digest in a simple web application, again, embedded within a government website or any website. This allows us to frame the context of what's going on and enables the public to access the information directly should they need to do so during an event. So having said all of that, that is a really quick sneak peek at all of our applications that we're providing as a baseline offering for our emergency management community. I'd like to now turn it over to Jeff to cover the remainder of our content. So Jeff?
Great, thanks, Nikki. So as you all saw, Nikki took you on a tour of all of the applications that we have available now that we kind of consider the things you should start with to be prepared in your jurisdiction. So this really kind of constitutes our emergency management operations offering. So these, as Ryan mentioned earlier, a lot of feedback has been gathered from the user community, based on all of your experience from all of these events, and a lot of those updates have been included in these list of solution templates that you see here. So really, this is our recommendation for the sets of tools that you should have in place before disaster strikes, so you don't have to call us and leverage the disaster response program. We also see that many organizations see value in using a lot of these apps on a daily basis. Incident status dashboard, right? It's live feeds of information and seeing what's going on in your jurisdiction, or conducting briefings with live feeds of information that are now incorporated as a part of these solution templates. So again, a great tour here of all of the capabilities that are available today to help your jurisdiction be better prepared for when disaster strikes. As Ryan mentioned earlier, hurricane season's only 683 hours away. Wildfire season's well underway, and in many parts of the United States, and obviously lots of tornadoes hit, throughout the past, 24 hours. So great sets of tools that you can leverage immediately. As Nikki mentioned, these all are available from our solutions website. So solutions.arcgis.com is the main URL to remember, and you can get started and download many of these templates today, and we'll show you in just a minute how to get started even faster. So obviously oriented around the different phases of emergency management, so you can dig in here and find the sets of tools that really kind of meet your needs, and a lot of these tools are in the response section here. And under the situational awareness, collection. So that's the key website to remember. An even quicker way to get started is to actually use the solutions deployment tool for ArcGIS Pro. So this is a tool inside ArcGIS Pro. So if you go to the Share tab within ArcGIS Pro after you've got this launched and configured, and this add-in as a part of ArcGIS Pro, you go to the ArcGIS Solutions button here, and it walks you through a series of tasks how to get started with inside your organization to use all the tools that Nikki showed you this morning. So it steps you through the process of signing into your organization, and then you can go through and select all of the applications, the solution templates that you want to use. So obviously in the red boxes here, I'm showing all of the apps that Nikki kind of walked you through this morning to get started with inside your organization. So as you're going through this process, what will happen as a result of that, it will lay down all of these solution templates with inside your organization. And as a result of that operation in Pro, you'll see all of the web apps that will get laid down, public information, situation awareness, operations response, etc. The associated web maps that go along with those apps, and all of the underlying feature services that go along with that. So within just a matter of minutes, you can wire up all of this information within inside your own ArcGIS Online organization account and get started with configuring these apps to meet the needs of your jurisdiction. And to kind of bring back to where we were at the beginning, all of these feature services can be wired up with inside the emergency management maps template. So one key task here that I wanted to highlight is the remap layers tool within inside ArcGIS Pro in the emergency management maps task to allow you to use the feature services that were laid down with the deployment tools as the basis for your work with inside ArcGIS Pro. So what that really means is all of the maps that you may make here from in the emergency management maps template are hitting the same sets of data as all of the web applications that were configured: incident briefing, situational awareness, operations response, etc. So it really does kind of establish a way that all of these apps can kind of work together in the same set of data. And this can work disconnected in ArcGIS Pro if needed as well. So I think that's a really kind of powerful feature to leverage as a part of these collections of tools to get started with. So just to think about what are ways to get started with these tools. So the first option is to do it yourself. As we mentioned, all of these tools are available to download from the solutions website. The situational awareness is a great section of the solutions page, is a great place to get started, to go and download and get all these started, or use the deployment tools as we just mentioned. The other option here is if you think that you need help with inside your organization, if this is something that maybe you just don't have the capacity, the time, or the expertise to do on your own, this is something that our professional services group can help you with through our operations offering. Help you come in and lay down and configure all of these tools so you're ready to use these for operations, either for incidents as they happen, or for blue sky days and just normal operations. So two key deployment options here for you for these collections of apps that we've mentioned and talked about this morning. I just wanted to spend a few minutes here as we're winding down to show a couple of real-world examples of these in action. We were pleasantly surprised just a couple of weeks ago to see a screenshot from Douglas County Sheriff's Office here in Colorado making use of the new public information template to share evacuation and resource information for a wildfire that happened here south of Denver. So kudos to Douglas County for standing this up quickly and leveraging the solution templates. This is also being used now for the national lever exercise that FEMA is using. So showing the cone of uncertainty, the track of the hurricane that's being used through the course of the exercise as they're preparing for hurricane season through the course of this exercise. And finally, I wanted to share a screenshot from our disaster response program's configuration of the public information app. Here showing from last night all the storms that were going through Kansas and Nebraska, Oklahoma, with all the weather that was going on. Again, this is just simply a configuration of the new public information template showing live feeds of information as the public's looking for that information too, just like those in the emergency operations centers. The one last example that I wanted to share with you here is of the situational awareness viewer. So Nikki kind of showed it in the Baltimore flooding scenario here, but this can be used against the live feeds of data as well. And in this case, we're looking at the fire perimeter of the Ray Fire in Oklahoma, nearly 300,000 acres from just a couple of days ago. And in this case, wiring this up with some of the data from Highfield Open and being able to show the critical infrastructure that potentially could be impacted by this wildfire. You can see that summarized at the bottom: the cell towers, the gas pipelines, and some of the demographics, in this area. So just wanted to give you an example of how you might configure these applications inside your own jurisdiction, leveraging a lot of the great tools that are inside there, including, being able to create reports, export the data here, create snapshots, as Nikki mentioned. So I'm sure that there's many other great example uses of the technology that are out there. Many of you may have components of this configured in your own organizations today. But just wanted, as we're getting here towards the end, wanted to share with you some of the live examples of these tools in action. And we hope that you share these with us. We'll share our email addresses at the end of this presentation. And if you're making good use of the tools, we'd like to know. And if you have questions or issues or even suggestions, the team would surely appreciate hearing of those as well. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Ryan for our final poll question and to wrap us up here.
Great, thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. So, both Nikki and Jeff just gave you a roadmap, right? So they gave you kind of the understanding of where we've started to deploy solutions to make them as easily available as possible for your organization to download to get started now, regardless of the hazards you face, whether that's hurricane season, that's the wildfires, it's seasonal flooding that's coming up in the Midwest, or even preparing way in advance for snow apocalypse that might hit the Northeast in the U.S. Just now we're activated kind of watching the volcano incident that's around Hawaii right now, currently underway. So all of you face hazards every day. To Jeff's point, I think he made an excellent point. You need to prepare for those kind of gray sky days, right? When something bad does happen, when the volcano does erupt, when the hurricane does start to approach the land. But there's also day-to-day business that your organization maintains, right? It is about using things during blue sky. It's about managing small things like farmers markets inside of your city and town, so getting situational awareness around that, or a venue or a special event that may be around there as well. So for example, just think about how you can start to use that daily, that trains people at a baseline readiness so then when you do have to go to gray sky operations, they're already familiar with those tools. And so I want to ask you the last poll question here today, which is, how can we best help you do that? Right. So how can we help you prepare for the gray sky day? How can we get you more information about these templates? And so I just want to get a sense of where you as a community are today to again help us to figure out how we best provide solutions and education back out. So if you would select one of these on the screen. So number one, you can do it on your own. You feel comfortable with what we showed you today to go and get the solutions deployment tool, use ArcGIS Pro, map your data to those feature services and be off and running. Or, hey, I'd prefer to maybe find some different videos. I want to watch this again, or maybe I want to take some little small lessons to help me in each one of these solution patterns. Or, hey, I'd really like to do a hands-on workshop. I want to bring my laptop and sit down in a room and have somebody work through this with me, or hey, just do it for me. I don't have time to deal with it. We hear that a lot too. So I'm just kind of curious if you would take a moment, answer the one that you feel is most appropriate for you, and that'll help us figure out where to go next as we build preparedness across the community itself. All right, so let's close the poll and take a look. All right, videos and lessons. That's great feedback for us. The hands-on workshop, we've done a series of those in Florida, kind of in preparedness for hurricane season. We had 3 different venues recently, so we will certainly take that to consideration as how we start to move out in the community. So, moving forward as next steps, let's kind of talk about where we go next and give you some immediate things today that can help you with that in slide form here. So number one, we're going to give you a couple of links. So on the screen here, you're going to see some next steps. One, if you're trying to have a conversation as a GS professional with your emergency management director or your emergency management coordinator or the operations section chief about what you can do with this technology, I would encourage you to check out the emergency management industry page, right? There's some great case studies. There's great examples of people that are doing good work in the emergency management space. So number one, start there. Number two, if you're ready to deploy today, for those of you that said, I can do this on my own or I'm ready to get started, you want to explore what we showed today. Jeff gave you the URL, which is solutions.arcgis.com. That'll take you right to the page. You'll see emergency management at the top, drive into that area, and that will start to download solutions. Conversely, for those that are in Pro, which I would highly encourage, download the solution deployment tool, sign in, and you can actually start to download and deploy, just as Jeff showed you, those solutions directly into your organization today. So step 2 is to go there. Now, if you've done all those things and you still have something come up today or tomorrow and you need help deploying these and you need support, right, know that we're here to help you, again, when your capacity is exceeded during a response. So when you have a disaster, you can always reach out to the program, esri.com/disaster. And then for those of you that want some hands-on training, I would encourage you to join us at the National Security Public Safety Summit during the Esri User Conference. And even for those that may be coming to the user conference in and of itself, there will be a number of technical sessions around emergency management. There will be some operations centers, so bring your decision makers with you, your operations folks if you can, to that event on the weekend. That's the first weekend in July. The National Security Public Safety Summit is open currently, and you'll find a lot more about this. We'll cover in a bit more detail throughout the week. And then finally, when you leave, so if you have questions, ideas, suggestions, and Nikki said it best, right? This is a collaborative effort as a community. So we want to help you with the right tools at the right time. And tell us when they don't work. Tell us what we can do better. Give us your feedback and requirements so that we can continually iterate to make these available to the community and support this baseline preparedness for the next event. Our emails are on the screen, so feel free to reach out to me, Nikki, or Jeff, either one of us, and we will certainly field the question. We'll get it touched in the right place. And then we have our next webinar coming up. So we're going to kind of take this feedback. We'll consider where we go next in July. So we're kind of holding on what that topic might be, but know that our next webinar in this emergency management series will be in July, right around the user conference time. So we will be talking about some next steps as we continually build kind of this baseline readiness in the community. So with that, I want to take a few questions. There were several that came in that I thought were really good. And so one that I want to kind of toss over to Nikki, there's actually two, but I'll start with the first one, Nikki, on the side, and Jeff, please, as well. So the deployment of these solutions, we showed ArcGIS Online as, the ArcGIS Online hosted solution of being able to deploy feature service and the like. And the question was, do these solutions work with Portal as well? So if I have an on-premise installation of ArcGIS for server as well as a Portal implementation, do these solutions work as well? So that'll be the first question I'll toss out to Nikki and Jeff.
Yes, so they work with our SaaS solution, ArcGIS Online, or with your on-prem enterprise Portal implementation. So we certify all of our solutions to work both hosted or on premises on your infrastructure.
Excellent, thank you. And then the second one, maybe to you, Nikki, as well, was a question that came in around the update cycle. So, for many of you that kind of probably get our emails that ArcGIS Online has been updated, you'll start to notice that terminology is changing, that ArcGIS has been updated, and there's a cadence to that update. And so, Nikki, maybe could you speak a bit about the solution templates and how we maintain those over the calendar year and what people can expect in terms of update cycles?
Yeah, so we release all of our solutions in concert with the broader ArcGIS releases. We have 4, sometimes 5 releases per year, and they're roughly, around February, March, June, July for user conference, September, October, and then December.
Perfect. So, the great thing about the solution templates is they are supported, right? So for those of you that are starting from scratch or maybe already have a solution deployed, Nikki said, we will maintain those things are currently in the product release cycle. So they, as Nikki described, get updates on a regular basis. So you'll get those updates as they come along. But also if you need help, you can call tech support, right? So they will be able to help you kind of answer questions around the solutions themselves, deploying the solutions. For those of you that use ArcGIS today, know that you can make that phone call in as well. So with that, we're kind of at the end of our hour. I would just say we didn't get to all the questions. There's a bunch of great questions that came in through chat that we will follow up by email after today. I encourage you to try something new today, right? So my challenge to each of you on the phone is think about the next incident. Think about the most pressing challenge you have. Many of you answered situational awareness. You got a great sense of how you can start with, baseline situational awareness, quickly assessing impact inside of the viewer, and then automatically pivoting into operations to kind of maintain and update kind of an operations stance within the operations period as well. So you'll see those things online. So I'd encourage you, pick the one that's most important to you, download it, start working through it, practice in that area. And if you have questions, reach out to us. Let us know how we can help. And we have a team of folks behind you that can certainly step in and support you in any way that you need. And give us feedback along the way. And we will see you in July for the next webinar, and hopefully many of you in person in San Diego for the National Security Summit or the Esri UC as well. Come by and say hi to us in the public safety neighborhood, and we'll be glad to sit down and chat in more detail. With that, thanks to Nikki, thanks to Jeff, both for presenting today. Thanks for all of you for attending, and we'll see you on the next webinar.